I think at this point is when I say, and so without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Clint Patterson to give our keynote speech today. And if anybody has trouble understanding him, check with me later, I'll tell you what he said. Or is that thing here? We're going to start off with a little turkey call. I just had to do that because usually in South Carolina today is like the opening day of turkey hunt season. So all my friends are at home calling turkeys, and I told them I was going to come up north and call some northern turkeys. So I see we were able to do that. We do have some turkeys in the audience that I at least know of. But this is the DNNCon keynote. And again, Joe mentioned the sponsors, and I think we all really need to realize that we wouldn't be here, the conference wouldn't be happening without the sponsors. So we really need to say thanks to the sponsors. These guys have booths. Really go and interact, talk with these people. They have services that you could probably partner with, and just be sure to tell them thanks. So I also want to just pause and say, you rock. Thank you to Joe, Don Bishop, David Poindexter, and anybody who was part of the DNNCon team. I want you guys to stand up, Joe, David, and Don, too. You guys stand up. Let's give those guys a round of applause. We've hosted 2 conferences in Charlotte, and when you host a conference, you realize there are tons of details that you don't really even consider, and things that, it gets overwhelming. And it's not like these guys are making money off of this. It's out of the goodness of their heart. So, really thank you, Joe, for organizing this, because I know when we finally got to the conference weekend, I was just like, oh my God, I'm just glad it's happening, and then it's kind of like a relief. Also, earlier I was in the bathroom and met some guys from Nigeria here. So has anybody traveled further than Nigeria?
Yes.
Yes, who? One?
Gilbert Olpak is from Cameroon.
Where's Cameroon? So if you're from Cameroon or Nigeria, stand up. Thank you guys. That's a long way. The company's flight was 29 hours, so it's pretty flattering that they would come this far to be with us, and I hope your trip is worth it. So you guys be sure to connect with the DNN guys there. Now, speaking of Joe in particular, he was talking about me, but I'll tell you a little bit about Joe. He was emailing me a couple weeks ago or months ago, and he was like, Clint, what do you think about the keynote? And I was like, did you mean to send that to me? Or I thought he would send it to the wrong person. He's like, no, really, we want you to do the keynote at DNNCon. I said, well, when is it? And he's like, April 1st. And I'm like, is this like the April Fool's joke, or like what's going on here? He said, no, I'm serious. He said, I want you to come up to the northern DC, Baltimore area. He said, we're going to have a huge DNN rally. He's like, it's going to be absolutely amazing. He's like, we want you to come, and we want to make DNN great again. And so I was going to put up some, red hats with make DNN great again, but I held off because I didn't want to get shot up here. And he also told me that Mexico was going to pay for the conference. So I don't know if you sponsors, y'all might can get some money back. But seriously though, it's my honor to be here, and people are trying to Skype and tweet at me to bother me when we close that. It's my honor and privilege to be here, speaking in front of you all today. I don't deserve to be here. I feel like I'm speaking to a room full of people who have paved the way for me. And I'm just as surprised as you are that I am actually up here speaking. So let's be honest, we're struggling for speakers in the DNN community. All right. So if you are a speaker at the next keynote, I'm going to raise the bar to a new level for you today. So to make it easy for you. So I apologize in advance for what may happen here in the next little bit. So if you don't know me, my name is Clint Patterson. I know Joe talked a little bit. I'm from Pageland, South Carolina, which is the watermelon capital of the world, aka God's country. Okay, and it is hunting season, and my friends are questioning my integrity for leaving the state during hunting season. But I'm platform manager at Arrow Consulting and Design, and if any of y'all want to throw snap remarks, I'm at CBPSC on Twitter. So that's a little bit, just like contact info, my background. A lot of times when I go to conferences and hear people speak, I really wish like I knew a little bit more about the person before they started speaking. Like I want to understand their background, where are they coming from, like, who are they? And so to help you guys out with that, we're gonna take a slide or two just to help you understand my background and do a little bit of self-glorification, because let's be honest, I probably won't get to speak again. So we'll start off with things I like. Bacon cheeseburgers is probably the number one. I've got, pretty strong liking for bacon cheeseburgers. Also, I like football, as Joe mentioned. All things redneck. This is Honda Pioneer. I've got one of these. It's like the best investment I ever made, especially when you shoot a deer way down deep in the woods. Now, my wife and mother would not agree with that. But all things redneck. I really like Bojangles. Now, some of you may not even know what Bojangles is. If you follow me on Twitter, you may see that I like Bojangles. But Joe Brinkman is a Popeyes fan, and he's like delusional. So Bojangles is sweet tea, cavity water, however you want to describe it. But Bojangles is pretty good. And I'm also partial to moonshine in some instances. Some of you may know that from previous events. Thank you. So now for some things I don't like. Salad. Start off with salad. Also, 3D prints that just mess up like halfway through. It really bothers me. I mean, you got like 3 or 4 hours and everything's perfect, and then all of a sudden you just wasted 3 hours. Anyway, I don't like that. Don't like PHP. I've got a strong dislike for coyotes. I don't know if that bothers any of y'all, but got some issues with coyotes. You can see my turkey decoy here. Now this is an advertisement for my IoT session later today. So we went hunting last weekend, and I had the decoy moving, and these coyotes came in and tried to attack the decoy. You can see the video on YouTube. So it was kind of crazy. But anyway, I don't like coyotes. Also, we're probably too close to DC for me to speak to this one, but I wanted to put this one in here just for, is Mitchell Sellers here? He's still hung up? Okay, but I won't speak to this one. And just some pictures of me. I said I hunt, but just so you can see, I do hunt deer. And there we go. Cassidy, 10-pound gorilla. That is a 10-pound gorilla hat I'm wearing in the picture with the deer. So I'm kind of upset y'all didn't have any pictures. But anyways, played football a little bit. That picture of me jumping is like my freshman year when you're not good enough to actually play, and they say, hey, send the idiot out there to try to block field goal. So that was me. And then the catfish, it looks, a little bit bigger because I had to stretch the picture, but it was like a 31-pound catfish. So now that you know a little bit more about me, I want to state my goal here before we get going into the presentation. My goal here is to inspire action among everyone in the room. I think we need to more openly share our knowledge on whatever level or depth that knowledge may exist. I think it would be awesome if we could flood the DNN ecosystem with content and information. I think it would really help a lot of people out. So let's be clear about what I'm trying to do here before we get too far into the presentation, because sometimes my ADD will act up and I just go off on a tangent. We won't even get to where we're trying to get to. So that's my goal, to inspire action by everybody in here. So you think about community. What is community, right? What does community mean to you? I mean, community can mean a lot of things. To me, it means relationships, it means family, it means coming together for a greater collective purpose. From a DNN perspective, the platform equals the community, or the community equals the platform. It's a reflection of the people coming together to achieve something that's much greater than ourselves, to achieve something that we all can benefit from. And the community is on a journey, and we all play a part in that journey. So if you're here in this room, you're not only part of the community, but you're part of that journey. So when I look at myself here, I'm with Sean Bobble. I think this is like 2011. I had a little more hair back then. But when I think of myself, I can see that I'm definitely a product of the community. And I don't know if that's good for y'all to be associated with me, but for me, it's good because people think I'm smarter than I am. But seriously, like, we barely even have internet in South Carolina, and it's amazing that I can even get to a DNN site and log in. But it's very obvious to me that without all of you, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So let's look at my DNN timeline a little bit. Now this timeline represents just some of the points in my journey with DNN thus far. Some of these moments involved alcohol, some did not. There's some that we can publicly talk about, and some on here that we could not put on here, just because it would be too embarrassing. There are moments like Collars for Will. Who remembers Collars for Will? Okay, these are the DNN goodies right there. So, but all along this timeline, there are people who played important parts along my journey. So when I first bumped into DNN, I think it was like DNN, like 2005 or 6. First bumped into DNN, and I kept going on to this site called DNN Creative, Police Sites. And it was like the first, site where this guy was posting a bunch of information. And you talk about funny accents. That guy had a funny accent. I could barely understand it. But there was this guy on the forum, he kept answering all these questions. And I was saying, why is this guy answering all these questions? And it was Joe Craig answering questions. Now, I first kind of got to know Joe Craig just by him posting on the message board all the time. I never really said anything to him because I was kind of scared to. But I learned of Joe Craig because he was constantly helping people out answering questions. So then I made my first DNN site. And I think I won some award in my state for just having a website. That was like animated GIFs and stuff, right? But then I realized there's this thing called open source, and there's this thing called user groups. And I happen to be in the Charlotte area, and there was a user group in the Charlotte area. So I was like, well, I should join. And that's when I met people like Alan Foster, David Poindexter, who I mentioned earlier, Ryan Moore, and the guys from the QC Doug or the now Southern Fried DNN user group. And so as I continued learning about DNN, I would read blogs by people like Michael Washington, Will Stroll, Chris Hammond, Ralph Williams, and several others along the way, several of you who are here in this room. Then we hosted our conference in Charlotte. People liked the moonshine we served, so we said, come on back next year. But then they got a little greedy and we couldn't do it 3 in a row. But when you host those conferences, we met, or I did at least, everybody met a lot of people who would influence my journey along the way. Then I joined DNN Corp, and I remember nagging Will Morganweg a lot during that time. He was pretty influential in my journey. And then I wrote a blog series on module development. And I would not have been able to write that by myself. I got some help from the Sean Walker, from again Will Stroll, Sanjay Mehrotra, Joe Brinkman helped proofread some of those. And those guys really helped me write that blog series. And also, all the people who canceled at the last minute for Keynote Speaker helped me to get this first keynote. So, let's be honest, we appreciate that. So, but when you think about it, aren't we really all just standing on each other's shoulders? I mean, who in here could create an application as robust as DNN on your own accord? I know I definitely could not. When I first started getting involved with the community and just seeing how people were really passionate about DNN, and they were including me. So when people let me be a part of their passion project, when they include me and empower me, and even better yet, when it's free source code that you can download, I don't know about you, but it really motivates me to give back. I mean, don't you guys feel motivated to give back simply by the awesomeness that you freely receive in the code? I mean, it's almost like a respect thing on so many levels. And speaking of, giving back, stuff like that, just kind of a side story. I mentioned I played a lot of football. My coaches in my hometown, I mean, it's just like you would imagine, Friday Night Lights, small town, football's all we got kind of thing. But those guys really invested a lot into me, into my teammates, into my school, community, and town. I mean, these guys ensured that we were running the same offense from Pee Wee League all the way up to, varsity. And they did a lot of things they didn't have to do. I mean, they really invested a lot in us. And because of that, I feel compelled to pay it forward at some point. I feel that I need to, at some point in my life, coach. Now, I've coached a couple of years. I've stopped since. But I feel that, simply by the grace that I have received from them, and they didn't want anything in return, that I need to pay it forward and give back. So at some point, I'll probably coach like a Pee-wee team and we won't never win or whatever. But anyway, I feel that just because what those coaches have or gave to me. So along the line of sports, how many in here are familiar with the term coaching trees? Okay, it's definitely a web conference here. Coaching tree is like a very common term in the sports world. And it's like a family tree of coaches and their coaching descendants. For example, we can look at this guy, Nick Saban. Now, how many of y'all know that true football is played in the South? Anybody want to argue that? Okay, we got some. There we go. All right. So, but Nick Saban, he's won a ton. I mean, he has established a powerhouse and a legacy at Alabama like no other. Nick Saban handles the details. He handles the small things. And you know, they say if you handle the small things, the big things will just kind of take care of themselves. But Nick Saban invests a lot into his players and into his coaches, and he's really successful as a result. Now, they just won a national championship this past year, and before the game I was watching an interview that ESPN did with the president of Alabama, and they said, sir, you pay Nick Saban like $5, $10, I can't remember what, just some astronomical number of money, ridiculous. You pay him $5 million a year. Can you justify that? And the president, he didn't hesitate. Without a flinch, he said, Nick Saban is the best investment financially that this university has ever made. So, I mean, he's real successful, but it's because about how he goes about it. He invests a lot in his players. So when we talk about coaching trees, when you look at Nick Saban's coaching tree, or when I think about Nick Saban, I think a lot of things. But one of the things that I really consider is his contribution to the game. The greater game of football, the sport. I mean, look at his coaching tree. He's got a lot of coaches in here like Mark D'Antonio. Where are my Michigan Gravity Works people? Okay, we got some Michigan. So he's got like Mark D'Antonio, Jimbo Fisher. Now Jimbo Fisher's at Florida State. He could tighten up on discipline down there a little bit, but they've won some games. Right? Jason Garrett, Will Muschamp. He left Florida. He's now at the Gamecocks. We hope he takes the Shamecocks out of the shame and puts the Gamecocks back. Derek Dooley, Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart, he just left and he's going to be the head coach at Georgia. So, and this coaching tree is just people that coached with him. These are not his players. My Clemson Tigers, Dabo Swinney is the head coach there. He played for Nick Saban, and his picture's not on here because he's not in the coaching like tree. But his impact is felt throughout the sport. So what about this guy on the right? How many of y'all know who this is? Dean Smith? That's right. So everybody knows that the best basketball is played in the Carolinas, right? And you also see how when we talk about basketball, I claim North Carolina, and when we talk about football, I claim South Carolina. When you live on the line, you can kind of straddle it like that. But Dean Smith is a legend. And when you think about his coaching tree, and it's probably difficult for you to see, but he's 2 down from Naismith, right? Inventor of the game. In his coaching tree, he's got people like Larry Brown, Roy Williams, George Karl, John Calipari, Greg Popovich, and Avery Johnson. So when you look at these names, you can see the impact that just one person can make. And it's pretty remarkable. So I included this slide of Bill Walsh because I know there might be some people from San Francisco here, and when we talk sports, I got to give them something they can identify with, right? Because out there's not much. But Bill Walsh, he's got a very impressive coaching tree. In here we've got Andy Reid, George Seifert, Mike Shanahan, Lovie Smith, Mike Tomlin. I think we have some Steelers in here. Tony Dungy, Brian Billick, and that's just to name a few. So these guys are making very big impacts. And the common thread, and you could add more coaches in here. You could say Krzyzewski or whoever. But the common thread is that these people coached to make people better. They coach to make an impact, and their legacies are going to be felt, are going to be visible in the game long after they're gone. So I want you to think about this from a DNN perspective. And we're talking sports, but let's think DNN. Can you name anybody who has influenced your journey in DNN thus far? Who is that person, or who are those people? And what did they do? Why do you remember them? So really think about that. Now turn the question back on yourself and ask yourself, can you name one person's journey who you have influenced? Will the ripple effects of your impact be big, or small, or will they be none? So as I mentioned earlier, I'm in a room full of people who have paved the path for me. So I see a lot of people in my DNN tree sitting in the audience. So when you think about, making an impact and leaving a legacy, how can you do that? To make an impact, you need to become an influencer. And how many influencers do you know that are sitting on the sidelines, right? Influencers are people who are active, they participate, and they contribute. And through those actions, they're able to connect, to motivate, and inspire, and ultimately they're able to leave a legacy. So what is your DNN tree, if you will? If you want a tree, then become an influencer. And to be that, you need to get active, and you need to participate. So when you start participating, you are planting the roots of your DNN tree, so to speak. And every time you have community activity, you're essentially like watering the roots. And then when you influence others, it's like spreading the seed for more trees to take up. So imagine what the DNN code base and community would look like if we all sought to give back, if we all felt compelled to make an impact, and if we were all influencers. Now, this is the all snap, the Ralph rap slide. Now this has some backstory, but how many of y'all in here know that Ralph raps? Okay, how many of y'all want Ralph to rap right now? Woo! How's that, Ralph? Do you want to drop a verse or two? I can give you a beat.
Come on, man, get up there.
I'm just joking. They say that you should put a jolt slide or something in your presentation, so that when the people kind of not paying attention, it'll bring them back, right? So I figured y'all be like halfway asleep right now, so I just threw this in here to kind of wake y'all up. So back to the presentation. Hopefully I've got you thinking about like making some type of impact, like participating or contributing. And they say pictures of cats are good too, so I don't know about that, but I got dogs. But once you get to the point of thinking about, hey, I'm gonna make an impact, I'm gonna step out, I'm gonna share some information, it can be a little scary, it can be frightening, especially if you're not like participating a lot now. I remember when I first got into the community, I was embarrassed to even ask questions. Like I didn't want people to know how little I knew or did not know, right? But people like Alan Foster and David Poindexter, those guys made it okay for me to not know. They didn't judge, they encouraged and essentially watered my DNN tree. So I want to ask you, have you made it okay for those under your influence to not know? Have you empowered them? Are you watering the trees around you? Because keep in mind, when you get ready to get active, at first, it's a little scary. So I got this slide up here about the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome is where, and I suffer from this disease, it's where you think like the little blue circle is what you think like what I know. And then this big yellow circle is what everybody else knows. So like I'm dumb and everybody else around me is so smart. And I really want to talk about this because the imposter syndrome, it stifles the sharing of knowledge. And stifling the sharing of knowledge ultimately stifles community growth. So if you think back, I was scared to share the things I knew because I felt like, and I still sometimes do feel like, oh, Mitchell Silver's here now. I had to slide up for you earlier. We'll go back after a while. Okay. I'm glad you're hydrated and sober now. But I was scared to share the things I knew because I felt like everybody around me was 100 times smarter than me. And it's very intimidating. But the reality is that we all know different things, and we all know different things in different ways. And there are overlaps in the things that we know. It's more like I know this and people around me kind of know about the same amount, but we overlap in our knowledge, and there's power in those overlaps. But if we're not sharing what we know because we're scared, then those overlaps don't exist, and we're not able to connect and keep moving forward. So does anybody else in here suffer from this imposter syndrome, or is it just me? Okay, good. So now I feel a little bit better. Hi, I'm Clint Patterson. Welcome to. But seriously though, we've got to talk about this and end this because, again, it ultimately stops the community from growing. So it took me a while to figure out that the magic happens outside of my comfort zone. It's real easy to sit back and soak in all the knowledge and not say anything, but just take it in. It's comfortable. But I'm here to encourage you to push yourself to share your knowledge. I'm here to encourage you to be uncomfortable. I referenced the blog series that I wrote earlier. I don't feel like a developer. There are people in here that can code circles around me, but I push myself to post that blog series anyway. And guess who learned the most from that blog series? Me, right? So I've still got people emailing and tweeting and contacting me about how much the series has helped them. Like we've got Mark Busling in here. He wrote me an awesome email a couple of days ago. It made me feel real good. But the point being is that I want all of you to step outside your comfort zone. And if you do, not only will others benefit, but you will grow and you will benefit from it as well. So we got this beginner's gap slide here. I'm passionate about beginner resources and materials. I think that having awesome getting started materials can lead to a lot of growth. I think we as a community just assume certain levels of knowledge, but people that come to the community, they're coming from different avenues with different levels of knowledge, and their onboarding experience or getting into the community experience could potentially be difficult, right? I think we need to remove any roadblock that we can for people getting into the community. And the most frustrating thing for me is when I get all excited or fired up about some technology or just whatever, and then I can't get past the very entry-level questions. Then it's just intimidating. I'm like, man, if I can't even install DNN, how am I ever going to develop a module or whatever it may be? So I think we've got a lot of room for beginner-level content, and I hope to inspire you all to help fill that gap. My blog series, the only thing I did was speak to the lowest common denominator, and I made sure to not assume any level of knowledge by the reader. So with that, let's consider the newbie. So the newbie shares the same fears that you do, or that you did, or that I did, or did. Really think back to when you were first getting started into DNN, back when you were the ultra newbie. Like, how did you feel? How did you go about finding answers? How did you get information, right? Was it frustrating? Did you encounter helpful people? Did you encounter people who were rude, snooty, posted one-sentence responses, and maybe were from Germany? What made you stick around? Newbies ask questions that we feel are obvious, but realize that everything is obvious once you know it, right? And also realize that newbies represent a great opportunity to grow the community. So newbies are those DNN trees that are ready to be watered. So think about a process of onboarding a newbie. What can we do as a community, right? We can flood them with materials and resources that are created by the community. I'm serious, we can put the fun back in fundamentals, y'all. I mean, it's real, we can do it. Content, we just need to create content that's clear, concise, and helpful. And if it's visually rich, that is including screenshots and videos, that goes a long way for the newbie. And also, why is it that when somebody registers to DNNsoftware.com, DNN Connect, DNN Chat, any of the DNN sites, if somebody's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and if they register, why is it that they don't even know about our user group? Why is it that they don't get an email or something that says, hey, there's a user group in Charlotte, or why can't we connect that, right? So is there room to improve? Yes, I think we can get there. I mean, imagine if you were first getting into DNN and you got an email, hey, there's a user group in your area. I mean, that would just be like awesome experience. So we recently had in the community something awesome happen for onboarding newbies, and that is NB QuickSight. So David Poindexter, go ahead and stand up. We're going to talk about it. Y'all give him a hand. Who knows what NB QuickSight is? Anybody? I mean, a lot of people do. If you don't know what NB QuickSight is, be sure to check it out. It's the tool that makes installing DNN easy. It's wizard-based. You just click next, 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 and it installs it, and it's open source. So the reason I really love this is it saves a ton of time, right? I mean, especially if you're installing DNN. But it makes it easy for newbies to install DNN without any experience. So that onboarding process, this fills a major gap for them. So that's why I wanted to give a shout out to this QuickSight. So perception equals reality, right? We all know that. If the onboarding process in DNN isn't awesome, if it isn't easy, if it isn't frictionless, and if we don't talk about the things that we're doing, and if we don't promote the platform, then people are going to perceive those stumbling blocks or those lack or voids of conversation in a negative light, right? So let's work together to change any perception that may exist, and in doing so, we'll create a new reality. I think top-notch resources for newbies can drastically alter the perception of DNN, because who would allow this people? The people who are trying to get in and they can't, and they're loud about it, right? DNN sucks. Well, who are you? I just downloaded DNN, right? I mean, come on. So we need to make that process easy for them. So to be blunt about it, we need you. We need everyone in the DNN community to shift gears and to participate. An example of community in action, in Charlotte, we asked ourselves, what can we do to impact the greater DNN community? How many people in here have attended a DNN conference in Charlotte? Have attended a user group in person or online that we streamed? Have seen some of the ridiculous tweets that we put out? Or read any of our blogs, right? How many of y'all would like DNNCon in Charlotte again? With or without me, So, but anyways, if you've attended a conference, read a blog, been to a meeting that we streamed online, you are reaping the benefits of a direct result of passion and energy. We're simply taking initiative in Charlotte. We're not smarter than you, we're not better than you, it's nothing like that. We're just persistent, we're motivated, and we're vocal about the platform. I think Gifford taught us all to be vocal, right? So these are the very same things that we ask of everybody in this room. And it's nothing but elbow grease and passion. And when you think about passion, people go where the passion is, right? One day I was, stalking Twitter as I do, and I saw a video of this guy that makes vacuum cleaners for Dyson. And so I just clicked this and I started watching it, and I got captivated by this guy, his passion for making a vacuum cleaner. So I don't know if any of you are Dyson vacuum owners, but I started watching it and I was like, man, this guy's really passionate. He really cares about how the vacuum works and the motor and just every little detail, even where the weight is on the vacuum. So my wife comes home and I'm like, babe, we gotta buy a Dyson vacuum. And she thinks hell's reason ever, because I don't care about a vacuum. But the point being is that people are drawn to passion. Just like I want a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and I probably shouldn't, or have no reason to other than this guy's passion. If we're vocal about our passion, which is DNN, then we will draw more people into the community. So I want you to consider the players on the field, and I want you to consider the people in the bleachers. We're doing sports analogy, so we'll just keep on. If you're a player on the field, I want to encourage you to keep playing. If you're a fan in the stands, I want to invite you down to the field, okay? I referenced influencers earlier. How many influencers do you know are sitting in the bleachers? When you get down on the field, it's energizing. It's energizing to play the game, in our case DNN, with people who are also passionate about the same thing you're passionate about. And it's energizing to use your talents to give back to something that's much greater than yourself. Also, think about this. You grow a lot more when you're on the field than when you're in the stands. As a person, you do. So what are opportunities for us to participate? You guys know all this. We can host conferences like Joe Craig and the guys and say, you know what, we're going to do something. We're going to host a conference. You can host user groups, attend user groups, contribute, be vocal. You can write blogs. You can, answer forum questions or exchange questions. You can contribute to the documentation center. You can get active on GitHub. There are a lot of different ways. And if all that sounds like too much, just do this one thing. In your browser, when you turn on your browser every day, you got your favorite tabs, right? Mine are deerhunting.com, stuff like that. But add a tab in there that is the new to DNN forum. So that is when you turn on your browser, you got the tabs you want, and now there's a new one. And all you have to do is scan the posts that are recent, and if there's something just post the answer. If you could do one a week, just imagine the impact we would make. So that one little small thing could help someone drastically. And then they'll be vocal about it, and then it'll be just a ripple effect. So this is not the last slide in the presentation. How we doing on time, all right? But again, I want to reinforce that we're all here today because of the sponsors who are generously given to sponsor this event. So again, be sure to go and interact and engage with these guys. Somebody's going to win a drone, somebody's going to win a GoPro, but more importantly, we're going to get a lot of knowledge, and you're going to make a lot of relationships, and it's all thanks to the sponsors. So the last slide here is to go forth and inspire. So your coaching trees or your DNN trees are ready to be fertilized and to grow. And also, somebody give Ralph a microphone tonight at after party. So he can laugh. But anyway, thank y'all. Appreciate it.